Hello, my name is David Willis, and I first heard about Light the Night through the Foundation Beyond Belief. I lead a team in Salt Lake City, and we walked last year, met other people with blood cancers, had a lot of fun, and decided to do it again this year. In 2005, I was first diagnosed with ALL. I'd gone into the doctor and I did a blood test, and they saw that my white blood cell count was too high. They sent me to a specialist, and I got a bone marrow sample taken. They found out that I had leukemia, and later on that week, I was sent to Primary Children's Medical Center to start with chemotherapy. The chemotherapy itself took about 6 months, and then afterwards, there was a long maintenance cycle for the next year and a half. During that time, I had all the regular side effects of chemotherapy, the weight loss, nausea. At one point I was down to 135 pounds and I should be around 175, so they had a feeding tube put in. But after 2 years, I'd gone into remission and I was able to resume school. In the summer of 2009, when I went in for a regular checkup, the doctors found that I'd relapsed and started me on chemotherapy again. They were thinking about doing a bone marrow transplant if my sister was a perfect match, but she wasn't, so we just stayed with chemotherapy. And I was in remission at the end of that too. After I'd gone into remission for a second time, I was able to get a job and work there for a little over a year. And then during another doctor's visit, I found I'd relapsed for a third time. This time, the plan was to go through a bone marrow transplant, and so I had a bunch of chemo before the transplant was actually going to happen. We did a bone marrow test that found that my minimum residual disease was a little higher than they'd like, so they decided to put the transplant back a few weeks while we did one more round of chemo. After that round of chemo, we expected the disease to have gone away a bit more, but it had risen even higher. So at this point in time, they decided that a bone marrow transplant was no longer an option. So one of my doctors found a clinical trial in Philadelphia that I was a candidate for. This trial takes T cells out of your body and genetically modifies them so that they will fight B cells, which are the ones that have the leukemia on them, that have a CD19 receptor on them. This means that all the other cells in your body are fine, and you're using your own T cells to fight the cancer. This process takes about a month for them to genetically engineer the T cells, and then in July, I came back to the hospital in Philadelphia, and over 3 days, they infused the T cells back into my body. After the T cells are in your body has a big reaction to them, usually with fevers, because they're fighting and killing your own cells, kind of like when you have the flu. I got temperatures that were up to about 105 before they gave me some drugs to intervene. And then a week or so later, they did a bone marrow test, and preliminary said that it looked good. They didn't see any cancer cells, and they saw T cells. 2 weeks later, they sent another bone marrow test off to Washington and saw that the minimum residual disease was negative, which meant that there was no detectable leukemia cells left, and that I still had the modified T cells in my body, which could fight any cancer that was there. I'd like to thank the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society for all the work they do in helping promote research for these kinds of cures so that people like me can have a second shot at life. You can visit us at fbbLLS.org if you want to help out.